Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to our podcast. I'm Sonia.
Harry.
And I'm David.
Yay.
Woohoo!
So, today's we're talking about the life in Korea, like for both of you guys. So these days, more and more Korean expats and international students and foreigners and are thinking about moving to Korea. But what's it really like once you are actually here? So we're going to talk about this. Today we'll start the story of David, and I think it's better to introduce your both of your like background and stories to our listeners about when did you come to Korea for the first time, or like the background stories. So David, could you please tell us your story?
Yeah, so for me, I was born in Korea, and me and my family moved to Canada when I was 10, and I was there until age of 30, and I came back to Korea. So I've been back here for 10 years now.
Okay.
And my background, I'm a Canadian citizen, but I consider myself to be 100%, pure blood Korean. Yeah.
Yeah, then what about you, Sonia?
Um, my parents took me to the States when I was just a 2-month-old baby, and I lived there for 10 years. And I came back to Korea in year 2000. I was a fourth grader in the States, but when I came back to Korea, I didn't speak any Korean at all. So they decided to just lower a grade. So I did third grade all over again in Korea.
Okay.
As we're practically born in US.
Yeah, basically.
Kinda,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, 2 months is 2 months means nothing. So
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah, I learned the Korean alphabet in fourth grade.
Yeah.
So you didn't learn Korean at all when you were in the States as a baby, as a kid.
I guess my parents taught me some basic words like my name, pencil, or
And both of your parents didn't use any Korean language while in home?
I don't remember them speaking in Korean in front of me. I remember having conversations with them in English, and whenever they had to talk about something private, they spoke in Korean, but like I didn't understand a word.
So they went the lengths to have you just speak English, learn that as your first language.
Yeah,
Yeah, that goes a long way.
it does.
So yeah, I'm hearing both of you guys' story, and then I think there for you guys, like there are so much struggles when you first arriving in Korea. Like of course for David, he's 30 years old, like Korean Canadian, and then he came back here like for a long time. So and also Sonia, like you couldn't even speak Korean. So what was your struggles when you first came into Korea?
So for me, now the whole idea of coming to Korea, it all happened. I didn't plan on it. It just all kind of happened, and I was really excited with the concept because I want to talk about this concept of the rule of commons, I call it. So when there are things in common with other people, the more commons there are, the closer you are. And for me, being a Korean Canadian in Canada, there, especially in the city that I grew up in, there weren't that many Koreans. So the fact that you're a Korean Canadian, somebody else being the same, hey, now you have one rule of common. You go to the same school, now there's two rules of common, and now you're like an acquaintance automatically.
Yeah.
You have to know the person's name. You're kind of a friend, and then there's three things in common. Say you play basketball together. Now you are set on becoming like the best friends. So now, whenever you meet a Korean over in Canada, because there's not many of us, you're like, hey, there's a Korean person. He's like, I want to get to know the person's name. Like, hey, like, I'm David. Like, what's your name? Like, just imagine coming to Korea. It's like Koreans everywhere. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, this is gonna be so amazing. And then I come to Korea and I begin to realize that, hey, that one of the big rule of common is now gone. Everybody is turning on the same page. So there was that identity crisis. And coming to Korea, I was like, kind of felt like I was a nobody in a way. Because before, being a Korean was a special thing. Now, not anymore.
And what about you, Sonia? Like when you first like went to Korean elementary school?
It was quite challenging because, as I said, I didn't speak Korean at all. It was hard to have a proper conversation with my classmates. So sometimes I couldn't understand what they were saying at all. So I would try to memorize what they said, come back home, ask my mom what it meant, or look up the dictionary. And it was really hard to catch up with the classes because everything was Korean, right? But there was this one thing that I didn't really understand. We would take exams, like the midterm and the finals. The teacher allowed me to copy the vice president's answer sheet. To me, it was quite unethical. Like, how can a teacher let me copy one of the top students' answer sheet?
So that was to get the grade average up of the class, huh?
Probably,
To make the teacher look better.
maybe. The teacher didn't explain why. And I just felt like this isn't right. So I would just write the wrong answers on purpose. Because it would be weird if I got 100% on every subject, right?
And the teacher would have been like, "What is wrong with you, Sonia?"
Yeah,
What
I
is wrong
told
with
her-
this Sonia kid.
I know. Yeah. So, yeah, it was quite a struggle for me to speak the language and catch up with school.
So how long did it take for you to learn like perfect Korean, like in school,
Yeah, to get
Um,
really comfortable speaking
Yeah.
in Korean.
for the classes and everything?
I thought it would take a really long time, but since I was exposed to Korean every single day, and the teacher even wanted me to practice Korean, so she would advise me to write in my journal in Korean. So I guess I spoke fluently by the time I was in fifth grade.
That's good. That's fast.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, your Korean is really good."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I know that's a real struggle. That was a real struggle for you. But for me to hear that happening in a different context is almost refreshing because when I went to Canada, at the time, learning English for kindergarten, elementary kids were not common. So I didn't know any English at all. So when I went there, I was just this stupid kid in the class that couldn't speak or follow with the class material. The only class that I was actually active in was math. Like I'll just be like holding my hand up like like a fish like jumping out of the water. And of course, there were kids picking on me, right? Like they go back to your country. Like when you said that had that happening in Korea, I was like, whoa, that's possible for that to happen the other way.
Yeah.
Because I heard that in Canada, right? And because kids are gonna be kids, they were saying stuff like, get back on your boat and get back to Korea. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, and there was this one time when I was in, was it fourth grade, when we had the Olympics?
1984,
The
or I'm sorry,
2002? 2000?
World Cup.
Not the World Cup. I think it was the Olympics when Kim Dong-sung,
Oh, yeah.
That's Winter Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
the Winter Olympics.
Barcelona, maybe, but yeah, I'm not exactly sure
Yeah.
when.
So there was Kim Dong-sung versus
Yeah, the Japanese American.
Ono.
Ono,
Yeah.
yes,
Anton Ono.
Anton
Yeah,
Ono.
Anton Ono,
Yeah.
and we lost, right?
Yes.
And my classmates came to me
Oh.
Oh,
saying
really?
really mean things.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's like a double whammy right there. I mean, damn.
I'm not even American, guys. I'm Korean. Why are you saying these things to me? They were like, "You lost. I mean, you stole our gold medal." Well,
I hope you fought back.
Yeah.
I didn't because like a ton of kids were saying that to me.
Damn.
The boys were. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard when it's the whole class saying that he's different. I've had my share of fights because I did get bullied. But even if it's like 5 or 6 kids, you can fight back. But when it's like 30 of them, now it becomes difficult.
Yeah.
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 I mean, like entire class is bullying you, then there's nothing you can do.
Well, it wasn't really the entire class, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
It felt like.
it felt like that. Yeah.
But then, both of you, was there any like special protection from the teachers when while you're
Um.
For me, not really.
okay?
So I mean, they weren't stupid. They bullied on me when the teachers were not there. Now there were times when things really got out of control. I was throwing chairs, and the whole class got wrecked. One time, I just went like a Hulk,
Wow.
and I got called to the principals, and that actually happened a few times. They were talking about expelling me, but talking about the current circumstances, it ended up just being a suspension. If it was anything else, then I would have got expelled for
Oh my.
the size of the how the fight happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess in that way I was protected, but not in an actual way.
Oh. Well, actually, the boys who kind of picked on me had a crush on me, so I kind of like ended up falling for one of the guys. Sounds a little cute and stupid,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess then the teasing and picking on stopped.
So he was like a knight in shining armor.
Yeah, kind of.
So was there any struggle for like cultural stuff? I mean, like food or outside of the schools. For David, maybe like you left Korea like, for long ago, so there's many things changes. So when you first came to Korea, like was there any cultural like differences or like
Shock.
something you didn't expect? Yeah, cultural shock maybe.
So culture-wise, actually I wanted to say this when we first began, but so Harry, he was the one that suggested doing this topic.
Yeah, right.
And at first I got excited because these are things that I thought about a lot, being here for 10 years. But right after that, I began to get very kind of nervous. I was a little bit terrified because even though I'm still here, because there are good and bad things about Korea, but it is the bad things that tends to stick in your head, right? So I got worried that I might be too negative talking about my experience. But when you say culture, it was like the small things that really got to me. So stuff like food and whatnot. I had Korean friends from high school, junior high, so I was pretty comfortable with Korean stuff. But small things like people walking on the left side of the street. I don't know why that happens.
Oh.
Like, I guess one thing about Canada is that people they stick to the rule quite well. So it's gonna be hard to find people walking on the left side, but that happens so frequently in Korea. And there's these people that walk in a group, like the horizontal, like the
Right.
wide
Yeah.
fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is pretty common, but people not holding doors.
Yeah, doors. Yeah,
And I understand
always.
it's not intentional. People are in rush, but yeah, when you're holding the door for the next person and they just come through right through, like, it's like, yeah, things like that.
Many of my foreign friends or colleagues always telling me about that, the doors. The Korean people, we don't really. I mean, we're not realizing, but many of the time we don't really care about the door opening or something. We don't. Normally I think Korean people are polite and we are we care about manners, but for doors I think we're not. Kind of surprising sometimes. Yeah, everyone is telling me about this.
And why does that happen with the street, with the walking? Do you guys ever notice?
I don't know. Like, yeah, this left side walking is that is there something we taught in school when I was young, and because there's also it's a very inconvenient because like normally the older direction of cars is the opposite, but then cars goes right and then people goes left. This is something wrong. So
So I actually looked it up at one time.
Yeah.
It's actually in the federal law for the pedestrian law
Okay.
that you're supposed to walk on the right.
Oh, really?
Right.
It's
Really?
in the law. So it's unlawful.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be walking on.
But I mean, yeah, in Korean elementary school, like in 90s, like when I was young, we actually in the hallway, there's a sign always, go left,
Yeah, stick to the left.
Left?
stick to the left.
What?
Yeah, there's a sign actually.
Yeah, I think I remember.
You have
seeing
to.
that in school.
So stairs, hallway, you always have to left side, and there's actually a line between the center of the
Yeah,
hallway,
yeah.
so that you can walk left.
So you used to be walking on the left.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I
But then
did
I-
not know that.
Yeah, I heard that later, maybe after a millennium or something, there's some changes about this.
That was in millennium.
Yeah,
really?
I'm not sure, but
Okay.
when I was young, the school actually taught students about that.
I thought it was right my whole life. Okay,
Yeah.
I guess I was wrong.
Yeah, it was rule. Yeah, it was a rule. Yeah.
Well, I guess there's a reason why some people can be confused.
Yeah. Because sometimes you go to countries and they say like walk to the right, stay on the right.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And also, another thing is that you told me about the street, like people blocking the road or something. Maybe a lot of time Korean people doesn't have this idea of personal space or something.
Ah, that's true.
Yeah. So actually, Korean people, we don't really care like if you bump into like strangers on the street or something. It's nothing. So other country, more normally, if you walk on the street and then there's other people, comes to you, then normally you would just move a little bit so that you could not bump in each other.
It's kind of reacting automatically.
Yeah. But in Korea, yeah, of course, a lot of people do that. But on the other hand, there's a lot of people who doesn't care about that. So maybe that's because, yeah.
So maybe that could be like the Canadian side of me,
Mhm.
because I feel like there's rules for reasons, and I actually found it offensive. Maybe, yeah.
Mm.
Too. So like what Harry's saying is that most people will just see it and just react and move to the side,
Mhm.
and I was like, I see it, and like, you guys have to get in a straight line. I'm not moving.
Yeah, it's I don't know why, but we we have that. Yeah, it's kind of wrong, but yeah.
For me, what I remember is this was quite cute. When I was in elementary school, the girls would go to the bathroom together. They would
Mhm.
never go to the bathroom alone. And
Well, you guys still do, girls.
yeah, but more interestingly, they would go into the stall together.
That's
What?
weird.
Still together?
Yeah, into the stall together. I mean, it's not to like stare at what the other person is doing,
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
but you would, one person would be doing their business, and the other person would be facing the door, and they would just like chit chat.
It's like guard or
Yeah, holding it,
Yeah.
make sure nobody else can come in.
It sounds like some kind of wild animal. Like protect each other.
I don't know. I couldn't understand that at that time, but in order to fit in, I just did the same thing. Yeah. And another thing, I'm not sure if
Wait,
you. Yeah.
when did you stop doing that? I'm curious. What do you still do?
I don't anymore. I'm sorry. I think I stopped doing it when I was in 6th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you and all your friends just kind of automatically just kind of dropped it.
Yeah. And there was this other thing. In the early 2000s, there was this trend, this stupid prank called dongchim.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
It's
I
always
thought-
there. Yeah. Even when I
Mhm.
was young, 90s. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Even before. Yeah.
Mhm.
I thought it was an early 2000 trend. I thought it was really stupid.
Yeah, it's an all-time thing.
Yeah, it's all.
Uh-huh. So it involves making a gun shape with your index fingers, and you
Mhm.
poke somebody's butt or butthole, right?
Butthole.
Ugh, butthole. I thought it was really disgusting and it was so uncomfortable. Why would you invade somebody's personal space? Like, because your butthole is such a...
Yeah, it's a very personal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and weak points.
Uh-huh. So I hated it so much. Why would you want to stick your finger into somebody else's butthole? It's disgusting.
Now, just for the people listening, it doesn't happen when you get older. I hope that they don't do it now, like the kids, but yeah, adults, they don't do that in Korea.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. Like they're still doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, so you come into Korea, you don't have to protect your, butthole.
So then, do you have any like? I mean, like you already explained about your like bad memories about, but what was the toughest memory, like for you, like toughest moment, like when for David maybe when you first came to Korea, and then for the all the years, was there any like toughest moment for you among all those memories?
Yeah, so this kind of goes back to the identity, the crisis. So, coming to Korea, I thinking of myself as a full Korean, and I still do in my heart. That's what I was expecting. Expecting people to accept me in that way, but coming and I realized that it didn't happen that way. So when I first meet people, they hear that I'm from Canada. I grew up in Canada. They get all excited asking me about this and that, and we bond really quick. There's things that they were curious about, talk about, but then gradually, as time goes, now I begin to realize that they are looking at me as Korean Canadian, not Korean, and yeah, that begins to create a gap. And also the other thing that happened with me when I'm hanging out with many Koreans was that because we have different experiences, different experience with school for guys, with the military, and also for work. At a certain point, it's hard for me and for them to relate, and that kind of kills off the conversation or having the things in common. So at a certain point, I began to realize that people that are around me are other gyopos. So I was in Seoul when I first came to Korea for about 5 years, and yeah, that's when I began to kind of hit me that even though I've been in Korea for 5 years, it's like I'm living on the surface of Korea, not really, yeah, being the center of the core of the society.
So what about you, Sonia?
Um, there was this one time I actually came back to Korea for a very short time. I believe I was 5, I guess. I stayed at my maternal grandmother's house for I don't know how long. So I went to preschool there for a very short time. And what I remember is that there was this kid in my class throwing kim, dry seaweed, at me saying, "Go back to your country." And it was quite shocking, and it's still there in the back of my head as a very hurtful memory.
But you fought back, right? You normally do.
I didn't really understand what the kid was saying, but by the kid's facial expression, I knew it was something negative, and because the kid was throwing something at me, so I went back home crying, and there was this one classmate that I was close to. She explained everything to my mom.
Mm.
Yeah. So the event that happened when I was 5 years old was stuck in my memory for forever. So that's why when my parents told me that we were going back to Korea permanently, I was like, I don't want to go. Just please leave me here because I already have a bad memory of Korea, and I don't feel like other people will accept me as a Korean. And then that Olympic thing happened. So things, I was like,
That's
oh my
horrible,
gosh,
yeah.
things are getting worse. They're treating me as an American when I'm actually not an American.
Yeah, because I remember the time it's just a national like issue. Like everyone knows it, and there's a lot of memes on the internet, and so that I know how was it difficult for you. Like,
Yeah.
But because you've continued to be in Korea, going to university and then graduating, working, now do you now feel like you are part of that mainstream Korean society?
I think I do.
mhm.
Yeah. I see myself as a pure Korean now, and I feel like I'm losing my English skills. My English is getting rustier every year, and now I'm craving Korean food whenever I'm traveling abroad.
hmm
Yeah, so I feel like I'm 100% Korean now.
When did that happen to you? When you begin to feel like other people are accepting you as a Korean?
Um, Probably in middle school, I think.
All right.
Because when you go to middle school, there are students who come from other elementary schools and they don't know about your background.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they are Korean, yeah,
Mhm.
but moving to a different school.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so I felt like I was being accepted by other people.
That's not bad. Middle school, that happened pretty quick.
Yeah.
Also, that's the sensitive age. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so I think that's good.
And at that time, my Korean was pretty fluent, so it was hard for people to tell if I,
If you're different.
yeah.
Mhm. I think by the time went to middle school, maybe you're not some kids from America, but you are like Korean kids who are really good at speaking English.
Kinda.
Yeah.
As a child, as a middle school student, did you ever use your English, like boasting about how you're able to speak?
I remember there were some kind of certifications, and I aced all of them.
Mhm.
And I guess the teachers liked me, especially the English teachers.
English teachers,
I was
right?
kind of like the teacher's pet.
Like the star of the
Yeah.
class.
So, Sonia, would you like to read this page? I'll be like, oh, of course. Blah, blah, blah. Everybody listen.
I think it's really important for kids, like, you need to have something, special, like
Hmm.
something, other kids, don't have. Then your school life will be much better. So for
Yeah.
you, maybe, it was English, yeah, of course.
But when I was in elementary school, some kids would tease me about my English pronunciation. They were like, why, when I was talking about Britney Spears, do you really have to say Britney Spears? Can't you just say Puritini Supiosi?
Yeah.
And that's when I started using Konglish to
On
just,
purpose.
yeah, on purpose to just fit in.
But that's same for Korean kids. Yeah. Even when I was young also, like I could speak like this native style, American accent English, but I couldn't because I knew that a lot of kids, think that, that's weird, and also they will, they might pick on me about that. So even after school, like even when I was in the, first company I worked, I also couldn't speak the English because of that
The
thing.
expectation.
Yes, because I know that other colleagues cannot speak English at all, but in the office, if I speak like this American accent English, then maybe they see me as kind of weird
Like a
person.
try-hard.
Yes.
So you've lived in Korea your whole life while you're speaking with an American accent.
Yeah.
Like, wanna be.
Yeah, because I know that what they might think, because of course they think that he's bragging about his English, even though it's Korean. His
feel
English
you.
is not that good, but he's bragging on it. So, actually, there are that kind of people. So
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there can be, I would imagine. That's actually happened to me too in a different way. Because when I came to Korea, because my work that I do, I don't work in a company, so I don't really get to meet Korean people naturally from work. So the way I met people was through English speaking, these are meetups or like the somoim in
yeah.
Korean. So I meet people who want to learn English, and they had this expectation of me that I will speak English to them, that my Korean won't be that good, and especially when it comes to my vocab, my Korean vocabulary is pretty good. It was pretty good back then too. But I felt like I had to kind of meet their expectation and pretend that like I don't know these fancy words.
Yeah, because sometimes when David uses big words, everybody's like, "How do you know that word?"
yeah, right. even the friends of us, sometimes
Yeah.
do that, right?
Uh-huh.
So yeah, for David, like you told us that even after 5 years in Korea, you felt you're not accepted as Korean. Like, and around you there are a lot of Gyopo friends only. So when was the time you actually feel that you are accepted as Korea, or you have a lot of like Korean friends, so that you feel that you are really Korean?
So the first time I really began to feel comfortable with Koreans is as I moved to Suwon. Because when I was in Seoul, there's a lot of opportunities for me to meet up with different Gyopos. And just kind of was more natural for me to make friends with Gyopos. But moving to Suwon, now I'm moving to a new city, and I began to meet more of the Korean people. Yeah, I guess I felt more accepted as Korean in Suwon. And I think part of the thing that happened is that um, a lot of the Korean people that I befriended in Suwon were girls. So there's less of that. I think the Korean military is a big factor.
Right, yeah.
So I think that also made it easy.
Yeah, because David, you mentioned about this rule of common
Mhm.
thing. Yeah, I think that works in Korea also. Like a lot of Korean men, especially men, like military or schools or your hometowns or whatever. So they make a list and checklist. So if you are out of them, then they normally say, oh, he's not man, he's not man enough, and he's not Korean enough. I cannot friends with him or something. So yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know what it is.
But ultimately, when it comes to identity, though, I really begin to accept myself that I am a Gyopo. That's who I'm gonna be, and that it is an unfair expectation of me for myself to be accepted as a Korean because I'm not. I mean, it took me, I think, a good 7-8 years of living in Korea for me to actually really come to acceptance with that. Because even though blood-wise, I am Korean, but culturally growing up, yeah, it is different.
And do you guys remember like I can we talked about so many like negative experience so far. So like do you remember that first good experience after you came to Korea? Just one really good memory for the first time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I would say one of my good memories is meeting my fourth grade teacher, because my third grade teacher wouldn't allow me to journal in English. I guess she didn't really understand what I was writing because I was actually writing in my diary in cursive.
Yeah, then of course.
So she would just write really short comments like, please practice your Korean, like that.
So that was like for homework.
Yeah, it was for homework. But my fourth grade teacher was like, I would allow you to write in English at least 2 or 3 times, but promise me that you'll practice Korean too. And she was really understanding, and she would write really long comments like beneath that were really touching.
I think yeah, this is another story, but I always think that that's kind of like in Korea that's kind of normal that you have to submit your diary every day
Yeah.
so that the teacher review your diary and then make comments on that. So it's kind of like
It's not only for the summer vacation, right?
no,
Maybe the
whole year, yeah.
Yeah,
Really?
the whole year.
You have to do. I'm not sure whether it's if you are like 5th grade or 6th grade, and maybe after 4th or 5th grade I didn't do, I think,
Really? I
don't
have
know.
all my journals. Like,
until you graduate.
yeah,
Really?
Like, to what grade?
6th grade.
Okay,
grade?
elementary.
I don't know. Maybe it's too long ago, so I I remember wrong. But yeah, but I always think that's wrong.
Yeah, because your diary should be something private.
Right. So therefore a lot of I remember like for girls of course, and then for me of course I have like different diary. So I always have like school diary for submission and my private diary for my secret because I don't want any comments on that.
Oh, so did you write down your dirty little secrets there?
Yeah, dirty things.
Oh my gosh. We should talk about this in another episode.
And what about you, David? Like, was there anything good for you? Like,
I think one of the good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there's a lot of things I loved about Korea. Being in Korea is fun.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially in Seoul, you can just walk to different places and there's like so many things that happens. Yeah, so many fun things. But one thing that I want to talk about right now is I guess dating.
Okay.
So initial phase of dating is easier. What's easier? Because like I was saying, even with just meeting regular Korean people, they are intrigued about me. They want to ask questions. They're curious about different things. So when it comes to dating girls, it just becomes easy because the early part, the pickup, is always the most difficult, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one good thing. But talking about this now, it actually went from really good to good because when I was in university, so that was in 2012ish when I came to Korea. At the time, people were actually they wanted to come and talk to you just because you speak English. So I used to have girls actually come up to me in bars and oh, like, where are you from? Like, oh, you speak English. Like, can I, like, can I talk to you? Can I drink with you? Like, that happened. But now, coming to Korea in 2015, that culture, I think it gradually diminished. It went away. But still, yeah, people are still curious about you, initially.
Okay, then. So these days, I think a lot of like parents maybe in the U.S., there are many parents the same parents that your parents, when you're young, like some parents who have their kids in the U.S. and then they might consider to come to Korea like you, or maybe there's a lot of like Korean parents raising a kid in Korea and then they consider to move to America, like to different culture. So when you think about your experience, how do you think about this? If you go back to your past, then you could make same decision, or if you were your parents, then they might have like same decision.
Well, it was actually my parents' decision to come back to Korea, but if they gave me an option, I would have probably said no to coming back to Korea because I had bad memories of Korea, right? And I feel like if I had stayed there for a few more years, my English would have improved compared to now. So if I become a parent and I had enough money to support my child to send my child abroad and study English or whatever, I think I would send my child probably in third or fourth grade. And if I have enough money, I would have them study there until college. But if not, probably have them come back in middle school.
At least middle school.
Yeah,
okay.
at least middle school.
So they're more mature and have better grip with the language.
Yeah.
You're one of the people that I know that are both fully fluent in English and Korean. And there's one other guy that I know from Canada. He's like that too. In his case, he was born in Canada, and then I'm not exactly sure about the exact age, but he spent kindergarten, I think, up to like grade 1 or 2 elementary in Korea, and then he came back to Canada. So he's fluent in both English and Korean as well. So in a way, you're kind of similar. You spent your baby youth years in US and then came back to Korea.
Yeah.
So some type of mix in that early age, I think that's critical to really be fluent in both languages.
True, true.
But at the same time, though, I think that experience can be hard for the child. So I always used to think that's ideal. But after hearing your experience, the hardship that you went through, I'm thinking maybe that is not the easiest way for the kid.
But I think it's quite different from when I came back to Korea because now we have social media, the internet, and I believe that there are more resources and communities that can help people adjust, and you can easily find people who have similar experiences. Because when I was a kid, it was really hard to find somebody who had similar experiences as I did, because I was the only kid who had the chance to study abroad. But these days, it's quite common.
Is it?
I think.
Yeah, I agree because like
Yeah.
compared to the days of Sonia was young. Now we have a lot of English kindergarten or so that maybe these compared to before a lot of elementary school kids now they can speak English
Yeah, quite fluently.
quite fluent.
Yes, that's definitely true. Yeah.
Yeah, so that maybe that kid if there's if in school maybe kids like Sonia like came to school from the US, then for them it's like
Yeah.
they really wants to be friends with her. So I think so coming back to Korea it's much better compared to your experience right now. But
Yeah.
the opposite is always because like David mentioned about this bilingual thing. So if you raise your kid as bilingual, then maybe you have to decide you send your kid to the Canada or US to teach English, or you have to bring back to Korea to teach Korean language also. So what is the like perfect age to start to learn the other language, do you think?
Probably
To be a bilingual.
bilingual. 7 or 8? Do you think
7
it's
or
too
8.
young?
I think that might be too young. Personally, I think second grade is the best.
Second grade.
I mean, you need to learn your
That's
mother.
7 to 8, huh? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, you need to learn your mother tongue first, I think.
But that is like against of like this Korean now a lot of
Education.
Korean education because that's
Yeah.
because we have this English kindergarten. So a lot of people who raise their kid as bilingual, they send their kid like in the English kindergarten like 4 to 5 years old.
And it's really expensive.
Yeah, and they believe that like 7 or 8 years, of course, one first grade, second grade is too late, so that they send them in the early age.
Yeah, I
Maybe.
mean, lots and lots of people ask me what I think about sending their child to an English kindergarten. What I say is that if you're not gonna have your kid exposed to that language 24/7, I think it might be a waste of money. I mean, if your goal is wanting your child to be exposed to English and just have fun, then it's okay. But if you want your child to speak in English fluently, I don't think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, 100% agree, because if you really raise your kid as bilingual, or like make them like speak English very fluently, then I think parents' role is really important. I think
Yeah, it
like
is.
Sonia says, if they have to expose their kid in the English speaking environment for a long time, but even though how much money you spend like to this English kindergarten, but they only stay very a few hours there per day. So when they come home, then they speak Korean.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not really effective. So maybe like both of you guys told us that maybe first grade, second grade, after you finish your mother tongue, then I think that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to think, now I don't have much experience, of course, compared to Sonia. But when I was in Seoul, because I had a lot of Kyopo friends, and many of them taught English. So they would sometimes ask me to fill in for a class for elementary Hagwon. Sometimes I went to middle schools to do one class for them.
Oh.
And yeah, my experience was that the kids that went to English kindergarten, and they were all in Korea the whole time, but they went through that English, hagwons throughout, that their English was phenomenal. Like in the higher grade of elementary or even in junior high, the kids that actually went to English kindergarten, I thought they lived in U.S. or Canada when they were younger. So I mean, that's my personal experience.
I mean, there's some people who have enough money, they normally send their kid to kindergarten, and then after that, they send their kid to other like academies, so that they can expose their kid for this English speaking environment longer. But if you have limited budget, and then if you can only send your kid to the kindergarten or this English academy, then maybe it's limited. Yeah.
And I see some parents sending their children to like 2 English academies, like one
Two.
for English speaking and one for like.
Korean education.
Like
Yeah.
grammars and
Then I think it could be quite effective.
And what about you, David? Like for the same question, like if there's out there are some people like you, like Korean Canadian or Korean American, or even foreigners who are into Korea, if they want to come to Korea, then was there any advice can you give to them?
So as we talked about, I think this situation is different now compared to when I was a kid. Because when I moved to Canada and I was just finishing a fourth grade, so I was technically fifth grade moving to Canada, and I spoke zero English. Like I really knew the alphabet. That was about it. So when I went there, like I was just I couldn't speak at all. Like. But these days, that's different, right? The norm is that even if they don't go to English kindergarten, they will have a lot more base knowledge of English. So I used to think that second grade is a good age to be moving, but now it might be different, especially for Koreans moving to US speaking countries. Now, the other way, US speaking family moving to Korea, now because Korean is not an essential, young age academic, yeah, that might be different. So for that, I still think that if they want to come, yeah, having them come at second or third grade, I think that would be the best.
And what about the people like you came to Korea in your 30s, so if there's other people, adult people who wanna like come to Korea, then what kind of advice can you give them?
So my advice is that you're gonna have fun. Korea is a very fun place, but just know that you're not Korean. Even if you are a gyopo like me, who was born in Korea, yeah, you're not Korean. Just don't have that expectation. Just expect that people see you as somebody that lived a long time abroad. Now, at some point, as you get to know people, you are gonna make friends. Yeah, just have an open mind and yeah, just enjoy.
And what about the career, like career-wise? Because I also know that, I sometimes I see the Reddit, and then in the Reddit there's some subred sub I don't know the word,
Like the
but
subtopic.
yeah, maybe the channel, like there's a certain channel called like Korean Teachers Club or something, maybe Hagwon or something. So that there's a lot of like foreigner who are in Korea and are working as English teacher. They discuss about a lot of things, and then 100% of them, tells that in Korea it's not really a good place for foreigners to get a job other than English teacher. The only job they can get is in Korea as an English teacher. So and I'm also working for like Korean company, and even now my company is like international company, but we have like 0 employees of foreigners who live in Korea, and I know how it is, and you have to if you want to get into like normal Korean company, you of course you have like very fluent level Korean, or else you would not get any like corporate jobs. So for you, what was it like for your career wise?
I mean, it's hard for me to answer that because I am a chiropractor, so I work in small centers. So it's a very specific job field that I have. So, yeah, I can't really answer that question.
Yeah, so if you have some like specialties or expertise other than like this a corporate related thing, then maybe they have some opportunities.
Yeah, I guess what I can say is that you gotta have a specific job field, and it's gonna be easier for you to work with English speaking customers as your customer base, rather than Korean.
Maybe, yeah, right.
Yeah, so those are the things that we wanted to talk about and share with you guys. Now, for the listeners, if you were thinking about visiting Korea or coming to Korea, and if you have any other questions, feel free to ask us on our Instagram or our podcast, and we'll get to you.
Yeah. So bye, everybody. Please wait for our next episode.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.